so close. You were so close. I was with it up until the end. 2018, a film came out. And it was the directorial debut of an up-and-comer, Ari Aster. This film swept reviews. I don't know if it was nominated for Oscars. I think it was in some categories. Critics, audiences, horror fans, everyone loved this movie. I didn't see it in 2018 when it came out. I saw it just now. I finally got around to seeing Hereditary. Because I found it, $8. It's still a new film, essentially. And I'm still on the fence with how I feel about it. Time Out New York gave it 5 stars. Quote, "This generation's The Exorcist, but heads will spin more savagely. A modern-day horror classic. Modern-day horror masterpiece, USA Today. Los Angeles Times, a triumph for Toni Collette." This movie had it. It fucking had it. Up until about the last 15 minutes or so. Okay, I remember seeing a trailer for this. I don't remember what movie we were seeing, but I saw a trailer, seeing another movie in theaters, and I thought, okay, this looks kind of creepy, but at the same time, it looks like the typical modern supernatural film that I don't like. Yes, I like Insidious and The Conjuring, but what do they have in common? James Wan. Loved The Witch. Absolutely loved The Witch. In fact, The Witch and The Lighthouse are my 2 favorite horror films of the 2010s. Now, this falls under, I guess, what some people are calling pretentious horror or intellectual horror. This, Ari Aster's new film, Midsummer, the films by Robert Eggers, Witch in the Lighthouse, A Quiet Place, the films of Jordan Peele. I get what people mean. I still haven't seen the Jordan Peele films or Midsummer, but I've seen both Robert Eggers films and this one by Ari Aster. And I have to say, this was a damn good movie up until the last 20 minutes. This is a supernatural film that does not rely on boo loud jump scares. The acting is superb. I will say Toni Collette did a great job. Everything else I've seen her in, she usually plays like the hot mom. That's the extent of what she does. Well, she was good in Little Miss Sunshine as well. Here, she really puts herself out there. And I applaud her performance. Of Alex Wolff, who plays the older son. I liked him as Durf and My Friend Dahmer. The husband, Gabriel Byrne, we've seen him in The Usual Suspects. He was in the first season of Vikings. He did well in this. His accent kind of came out a little bit at times. And the girl, Milly Shapiro as Charlie. Great job. She has the same genetic disorder as the kid from Stranger Things. Was it cleidocranial dysplasia or something like that? She has the same thing. 4.5 minutes in. I haven't even got to the story yet. Okay. The film opens up with the funeral of Toni Collette's mother. This girl's grandmother. We find out the end of her life she had dementia. And there was estrangement and sort of bad blood between her and the grandmother, her mother, throughout most of their life. On and off relationship. talking, not talking, manipulation. We find out that the grandmother's life was stricken with mental illness. Like her husband, during a psychotic breakdown, starved himself when she was a baby. Her older brother, schizophrenic, hung himself, and made the grandmother out to be the reason in the suicide note. And the way the movie plays out is, okay, so she's grieving over the loss of her mother. And the movie really is built around grief. From what I understand, Ari Aster's second film, the new film Midsummer, has a lot of grief in that as well. And just as the film goes on, it's her dealing with grief, and then something happens to the daughter Charlie. We get more grief, and then dealing with mediums and apparitions, and sort of making her look like she's suffering from like a mental illness breakdown, according, through the eyes of the husband and the older son, played by Alex Wolff. This movie was so good. I mean, I liked the camera work, the tone. I can see how and why people would call it pretentious, but I still enjoyed it. It didn't feel like it was trying to be deeper than what I could understand. All the performances were great. Even Milly Shapiro, who played Charlie, I think she was like 16 when this was made, but she's playing a 13-year-old. She did a great job. It doesn't say if she's just eccentric or has some sort of what's the term I'm looking for? A learning disability, like some form of autism or something. She's constantly drawing in her notepad. Toni Collette is a miniature artist, like she does models, and she kind of makes her own toys with stuff she finds. And like in the trailer, she cuts the head off a crow and carries it around. She's always going, and has a severe peanut allergy, and she's always eating chocolate. Alex Wolff plays Peter, 16-year-old eldest child. He's a stoner. And I guess Milly Shapiro, she is one of two girls who, in the original version of Matilda on Broadway, she won a Tony Award. So her and this other girl are two of the youngest people to win Tonys for Broadway, which is astounding. She really is a good actress. I was really impressed with her. And, the scenes with apparitions they're spread out. It's very methodical. It takes its time. It is kind of slow paced. It is very depressing. It felt kind of rooted in reality. I thought, oh, so it's like a supernatural film with apparitions and ghosts, but it's rooted into like mental illness. So it's kind of like how in The Exorcist, when Ellen Burstyn approaches the young priest, Father Damien, who what's his last name? Funny, his first name was Damien. And he says people don't do exorcisms because mental illness has disproved a lot of that stuff. I thought I was going to kind of root a lot of it in reality with that. But then the ending. I do got to explain some major spoilers. This is a newer film, so if you haven't seen it, I can recommend it. It is a very good movie. It does deserve the accolades it gets, yes. the ending just really pissed me off. I mean, I haven't reviewed them because I saw them way before I started this channel, but Sinister and Split, especially Split, are examples like this of movies that were great and then the ending shit all over them. The ending didn't entirely ruin the film for me, but it was close. So I'm going to say spoilers here. A week after the grandmother dies, Peter wants to go to a party. A house party. And Toni Collette makes him take Charlie with him. Even though she doesn't want to go, it's obvious he doesn't want to bring her. He just wants to bring his weed and hopefully get laid. Gets to this party. He starts smoking in another room, tells her to grab some cake. The cake has nuts in it. They foreshadowed it enough times. They really put it out there that they're using nuts. She eats it. She has a reaction. And, it takes place out in Utah, so it's kind of a desolate area. He's flying down this back road. She opens the window for some air. She sticks her head out the window, and there's roadkill. So he swerves, but he loses control, and when he gets back, he's really close to a power pole, and it decapitates her. Then you get a really long scene of him, which I thought was acted very well. He's sitting in the car, he can't look, he drives home, and he goes to bed. He's in shock. Leaving her headless corpse in the car to be found by her. And then they show her head next to the road covered in ants. And, she goes, someone in her, loved one, anonymous, like a support group, that's what I was looking for, has her over, does like this little thing where she can contact those who have passed. She gets into that, and she does it, like the husband is really, he wants her to do well, but he wants her to kind of cut the shit about, mediums and trying to do this, trying to do that. The son, I think the son kind of fears his mother because at one point we find out that she's a sleepwalker. And she tells us at one point when Peter and Charlie were really young, she was sleepwalking, and she woke up with herself and both kids covered in paint thinner, and she had struck a match. And I guess Peter never really believed she was sleepwalking, or at least in her head, he never believed it. The movie does do well with family tension. It really does a good job at building tension. The scares are really methodical, kind of like The Shining. The apparitions, they're like in a darkened corner, or they're in the background, which makes it, there's no music, it makes it creepy. So the scares and the creep factor is there. The ending, though, you find out there's some sort of cult. Because also, written on the walls, whenever something bad happens throughout the film, written on the wall, there's some sort of word that means something. I'm guessing it's part of the paper she has to read during her little seance to contact with her. Find out this cult wanted Charlie to pretty much be the host of this entity named Paimon or Payman. But they found out that wasn't really what they wanted. So they planned Charlie's death. That's one thing. Well, actually, first, we see her sort of become possessed by something. She goes rabid. Like, she chases Peter. He goes up in the attic, and she's, like, climbing walls, and she's, like, very fastly, like banging her head against the attic door. It had the split ending. She's like this super kind of being. That pissed me off. Then we find out this cult planned everything. Actually, I think they were planning for her to be the host because not only can she climb walls, she can levitate. And this scene was creepy. Yeah, she has this piano wire and she decapitates herself. So Peter runs out to Charlie's treehouse and we see the cult there. And they announce him as the new Paimon, whatever. So they planned Charlie's death. They knew he was going to be at the party. They knew nuts were going to be served, or nuts were going to be used in the cake. They knew he was going to take that back road to the hospital. And somehow knew Charlie was going to stick her head out the window just at the point where they put the roadkill there. And that he would swerve just enough so that the telephone pole would decapitate Charlie. That's why I hate the ending. Because you have this movie where it had built tension so well. The tension amongst the family. The scares they were earned. They weren't jump scares. They weren't loud, boo, gotcha, you need to be scared right now scares. And, you know, it was very methodical in how the film kept building that you do like this Shyamalan type of twist, like, oh, everything was planned because there's a cult. I don't know, I really disliked the ending. I was very disappointed with the ending. But the rest of the movie as a whole was really good. I liked, and if we're going to get more supernatural horror films, they should go the route of this and The Witch. Where, yeah, it is quiet. It does take its time building tension, building towards the scares. Doesn't have loud fucking jump scares. I would say as a movie, this was better than Split and a Sinister, which kind of surprises me as why the ending doesn't ruin the movie as much as it did for those films, because Sinister pissed me off. Split, I had to pace around the room a few times because that's how pissed off I was. This was just a big disappointment. What the ending was. I still gotta, I mean, for a directorial debut, Ari Aster really did a good job. There's some neat tricks, like when Peter is grieving, he's in the classroom, and it kind of shows in his vision there's still the rearview mirror of the car from when Charlie was killed. That's just in his vision. Obviously, there's no rearview mirror in the classroom. Or when he sees Charlie standing in the corner of his room, and then her head rolls off, but when it hits the floor, it's a basketball, and it rolls towards him. So, you know, there are some neat tricks and transitions and stuff like that. You do get some fancy camera work, like when Toni Collette walks in this one building, it's like upside down until she walks by, then it's right side up. I think there would have been better ways. Like, you could have just made this a mental illness, and it's Hereditary. A hereditary mental illness movie with no cult, none of that shit, and it would have been fantastic. I would have agreed with every positive review this film has got. But that ending just wasn't for me. I thought it was so... Maybe I didn't get it. There's also that. I was really digging the fact that, one, no jump scares. Two, it's building up at a good pace. It's very visceral. It's all about raw grief. you buy everything that's happening, like the shock Peter is in after she's decapitated. You know, it is a downer of a film, but it's easy to get into. And then we get all the way to the end, and it's this cult that's been fucking with his family the whole time. I still haven't seen Midsummer, but from what I've heard, it is more pretentious than this, The Witch and the Lighthouse. It's still like a new release price. I'll wait till I find it used for cheap, or if it's ever on Netflix or something. Hereditary, I still have to give it credit. It still is a very good film. It still is one of the best of like the 2010s, like this past decade. That ending, though, I could have done without. Could have done without the ending. And that's why it's so frustrating. Because I don't like modern supernatural horror films. Like all the Insidious sequels, because I like the first one. Anything related to The Conjuring that's not The Conjuring. Like the Annabelle movies, Ouija, all that shit. A Haunting in insert state name. I hate all those movies. Just, there's not enough for me to get into it. I think they're cheesy and hokey. That when you give me one that is well filmed, well acted, a real raw and visceral kind of feeling, and tone and atmosphere, where you can make, it's apparitions and this grief, but it could have just been mental illness, and that could have been like her whole explanation. That when you give it a Shyamalan twist, that's why it's frustrating. But I still have to admit, it is a well-made, good movie. And it is kind of lengthy, 2 hours, 7 minutes. But even then, it uses its time wisely. It's using it to build up. And I still it's one hell of a directorial debut. So, I finally saw Hereditary. Thank you for watching.